It's blood for blood in the final movie of the DCEU as Aquaman faces his toughest challenge yet in the form of a Black Manta that's seeking revenge for the death of his father. Can Arthur protect both his kingdom and his family before it's too late? What's up, guys? Welcome back to the MontyVerse. We saw Aquaman the Lost Kingdom, and boy, do we have a lot to say about it. Now, Nikki, going to this, I love the first Aquaman movie. You know that. It's one of my favorite films in the DCEU. I think it introduces the concept of camp back into the superhero movie and really embraces its really outlandish themes and tones. This movie, not so much.
I mean, I'm with you. I thoroughly enjoyed the first one. I love that it didn't take itself too seriously. And I think it's totally fair to say that at times this movie doesn't either, but it also does. And I think that leads to a very disjointed ride that doesn't have the enjoyability or cohesion of the first one, even though the first one wasn't perfect either.
Yeah, it's weird because there is somewhere deep down a good movie somewhere in this film.
Yes.
At one point, this was a very tight, great movie about fathers and sons that somehow was mutated, evolved, and distorted into a really weird cacophony of different films and genres that's almost unrecognizable as a final product.
It's so bizarre, and it's like off the bat, it's kind of not a great start as it is, because there's kind of a lot that they throw at us, stuff that's brand new, stuff that apparently happens off screen that we're just being made aware of through some very blatant just exposition. And then there's, like I said, there's points where it's funny, it's goofy, leans into kind of the absurdity, and then others where it plays it really seriously, but there's just very little cohesion at times between them.
Yeah, there's tonal whiplash for sure in this movie. This movie doesn't even know what movie it wants to be, which is really weird because of how set in its identity the first Aquaman film was. It almost feels like there are different people involved in this movie than there were in the first one, which is insane to think about because you have James Wan returning, you have the same writer returning. The only difference is that like 7 different people were involved in the story, one of them being Jason Momoa, and it feels at times that he not only wrote full scenes of this movie, but might have even directed them himself.
Well, and we all know that this is the final installment of the DCU.
Yes.
So there's a very good chance that Warner Brothers was like, F it, do whatever the hell you want. But at the same time, what's so weird to me is the marketing for this was so much better than I expected. Yeah. And it seemed like a fairly straightforward plot in the trailers. The
trailers seemed to be all the things I loved about the first movie. So I was really excited to jump back into this world.
Yeah.
But then when you see this film, there is somewhere along the road, there should be a documentary made about what happened to this film, because I'm so curious to find out the inner workings of what went on. Because it's very clear that at some point James Wan either gave up and stepped away or just was on autopilot, because a lot of the stuff that he did well is not in this movie. And there are some scenes where you see it and it's very prevalent and you're like, that's totally James Wan style. There's a lot of really great designs, creature designs, and new technological designs that are very Wan-esque. And then you have stuff that feels so weird and so tonally different from the skill level that he's presented to us in all of his other films that it's so jarring to me.
Right, and here's the thing. I'm fine with weird. The first Aquaman was weird and bizarre and had some crazy ideas. I mean, you had cephalopods playing the drums. Which is stupid on
Straight out of the comics. Straight from the comics.
But that's the thing. A lot of that is stupid on paper because Aquaman is stupid on paper.
Yeah, okay. He's the king of Atlantis. Put some respect on his name.
Well, you know what I mean, though.
Yeah, he's played up as a joke, yeah.
But that's the thing. The first movie, I think, leaned into it just enough. Yeah. This movie, I think, it both doesn't lean into it, and then there are times when it does, and it's not funny, it's not entertaining.
It leans so far into it that it falls and hits itself on the face.
Yeah, and it's like, did someone actually write this and everyone who reviewed it thought it was a good idea?
Like I said, I am convinced that Momoa at one point took full control of this movie.
Yeah. Oh, you could tell that 100%.
There are scenes, if you watch this movie, there are scenes, and we'll talk about the dialogue in a second, but there are scenes in this movie that feel like he just was with his buddies drinking a pint of Guinness ice cold beer. Yeah. And they were just writing these scenes down. He was like, this is sick.
Yeah.
And then it's some of the worst dialogue in a film I've ever seen. There's some dialogue in here that's so cringe-inducing and forehead-slapping that I couldn't even, I found myself laughing multiple times in the theater when I wasn't supposed to be.
Well, I was going to say, let's get into that a little bit, obviously, without spoiling. But But yeah, the writing, that was a big thing to where, and the sad thing is, like I said, I think there are a lot of good ideas presented. But then when you get to some of just the interactions between characters, it's so stupid. It's so, let's make a reference to this. Because like that was a big thing in the first movie was, oh, he's half human. So he's a fish out of water. And then Mira was kind of a fish out of water on land. Like there was kind of that dynamic.
Yeah.
They take that and like run in some of the stupidest directions with those jokes.
You want to know what's funny? This movie doesn't know what MCU movie it wants to be. This movie is 4 different MCU franchises rolled into one, and we're not even exaggerating. You will watch this movie, and you will see scenes ripped directly from Marvel movies.
Yeah, there's at one point where, well, firstly, I just turned and looked at Monty like multiple times during the movie, because how could I not? There was a point...
We were looking at each other multiple times and just laughing.
And I don't even want to say what movies, because I feel like that will spoil the movie.
I mean, I think the obvious one, and we'll talk more about this relationship, is the Thor franchise.
Yeah,
because
that's the point.
They shoehorn in this Thor-Loki relationship between Orm and Arthur. And listen, I'm all for more Patrick Wilson, because Patrick Wilson is great in this movie.
I was going to say, he's the best aspect of this entire movie, by far. He
is the only one, like, actually trying for most of the film. I shouldn't say only one, but he's far and away the standout.
But that's the thing, it's like, he's given a lot of crazy stuff he has to work with, and he just hits... It's hit after hit with his delivery, with his I was gonna say physical acting. There's some weird stuff he has to do.
He's very physically comedic.
But that's the thing.
And you're right, they do ask him to do a lot of stupid and weird things.
But it works so well for the character and for whatever tone this movie is going for, because you buy him in every scene, and he really stretches himself in this movie.
Yes. Yeah. So Patrick Wilson's fantastic. Tamara Morrison is great. I feel like I have to shout him out because he's so consistently good in everything that he's in. And he shows up here and he gives a really grounded, loving performance that stands out in this movie of pretty bad performances, but he's always good. Dolph Lundgren, he did his job. He served his purpose. I don't want to put him in the negatives. So, yeah.
I would say he was very fun. He did what he had to do.
And another thing I will say, Amber Heard is in this movie way more than I expected her to be.
She is, and like, I wouldn't say she has the largest impact on the film, but I will say, to like a very pleasant surprise, there are a couple scenes she has where she really delivers.
Mira is a badass through and through. They continue her badassery from the first film. They carry that over into this film, and they make her even more of a badass in this film. Every action scene she has, she's presented as the badass queen that she is from the comics.
Yeah.
So they did not do anything to harm her character due to her actresses out of movie drama that was going on at the time during filming this. So I will say that was a huge plus, that the character of Mira was preserved for this movie. Now I will say the weakest performance in this Aquaman movie is far and away Jason Momoa as Aquaman.
Oof. It's so, I hate to say the word cringe, but unfortunately this really also kind of goes back to a lot of the dialogue he's given, because it's like they took some of the facets of his personality that made him kind of a unique character, that made him stand out amongst the Justice League, and they took that and went to like 100.
They took the dude bro-y Aquaman concept that they introduced from his first appearance, and they amplified it by 1,000 to the point where there are some scenes where it works, and those are the scenes probably directed by James Wan. Yeah. And there are other scenes where he's so unlikably buffoonish.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are we doing this? Why is this character so dumb? Why is he so unlikable? It's unnecessary buffoonery.
It's unnecessary.
I feel like Tom Lee Jones when I say that.
That you don't sanction his buffoonery.
You know what? In this movie, I do not sanction his buffoonery. It's insane.
I was gonna say, I sanction this less than Jim Carrey.
Yeah, this is actual buffoonery.
Yeah, and like you said, it's very repetitive. It's very many times just not funny.
It doesn't land.
It doesn't advance the story or his character in any way. Because here's actually a great point you made. It's so much of the same that it feels like this movie does not improve him in any way.
No, his character is stagnant. If anything, the character regresses.
Yeah.
In this movie.
And the worst part is they make it seem like he is doing a lot of great stuff, and like, yeah, but it's kind of like what you were expecting him to do to begin with, and if he didn't, it would be catastrophic.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is my biggest heartbreak of this film.
Oh.
They take one of the most interesting comic book rivalries and an actor and character that was so well done in the first movie, and that's Yahya Abdul-Mateen II's Black Manta, and they completely waste him in this film.
Yeah.
Black Manta is supposed to be the main adversary of this movie. He is wasted. And not only that, but Yahya's talent is wasted too.
Yeah.
It feels like a completely different character in this movie, to be honest with you. And at times, maybe he is. I don't know.
And what's so disappointing is they really didn't have to do, like, it should not have been this difficult to keep him at least equally as compelling as the first time, because as displayed in the, not just in the marketing, what you would have assumed from the first movie, his through line and goals are pretty damn straightforward.
Yeah.
Like, you knew what you were getting with him. You just had to continue that. Instead, you mentioned Arthur regressing. I would say he got that even worse, possibly.
Manta regressed because they took away everything that made Manta unique and interesting in the first movie with so little screen time that he had, and they made him a generic one-note villain in this movie.
Yeah.
It's so weird because he is a fully fleshed out villain carried over from the first movie whose goals are perfectly laid out for us as the audience. So all you have to do in this movie is smack these two characters together and watch them go at it.
Yeah, and not only is it a matter of his goals, as a character, he was even more interesting. He was more intelligent. He stood out more.
They showed his engineering abilities. They showed his abilities as a skilled swimmer and fighter in the first movie. Where in this one, he just stands and barks orders the entire time. They take away everything that makes him unique and interesting, and they kind of just skip past it and glance over it.
And he has some... And, like, I know we've talked about the writing ad nauseum already. He has some of the most cartoonishly villainous lines that...
There's one line that's so stupid that I love, and I needed more of that because Yahya's delivery is so great. And that's the kind of stuff I expect from, like, the comic book Manta Arthur rivalry, like that petty dialogue.
Right. Well, that line, I think, was fire.
Yeah.
And I know what line you're talking about.
Yes.
We're not going
to spoil it because it's too great. I want people to experience that.
But the ones where he's just being generic.
Like mustache twirling.
Yeah, but that's fun. There's somewhere it's just like dull, generically evil. He like is just completely inhuman at that point. And
just such a waste. Because to me, like, let's take a comic book aside for a second. Mm-hmm. I love Manta and Arthur's adversarial nature in the comics because it's based on pure hatred. One man hates the other because they both took something from the other. Mm-hmm. Arthur took Manta's father. Manta took Arthur's son in the comics. He killed Arthur Jr. Mm-hmm. So they have this pure hatred that runs so deep beyond anything else that we can comprehend that their hatred is more visceral because it's a hatred that is shared by the both of them. Like a blood feud that is shared by the both of them that other superheroes and villains don't really have. Like Superman doesn't want to just murder Lex every time he looks at him because Superman it's just not the same type of rivalry that these two have. And it's such a simple relationship that this movie should have been a simple story about fathers and sons. You introduce Arthur Jr. Arthur took Manta's father. Arthur's father's in the movie. Like, it writes itself.
Yeah.
But somehow we throw all of that out and we end up with a story about brothers while also reintroducing the themes of fathers and sons to the point where I'm scratching my head. Like, hey, you do know Black Manta has a son in the comics, right? And why don't we introduce Calderam, or Jackson, as some of the comic book people may know him, and have a story that revolves around that, these two fathers and these two sons trying to set examples for their children instead of just like, hey, brother, what's up? Let's go eat a cheeseburger and a Guinness. Like, stupidity that we just didn't need at all. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, there's so many... I'm sorry. I'm ranting right now. I'm going. I gotta finish this, brother. Let me tell you. There is, like, all of the concepts and story arcs that they use for Black Manta in this movie were introduced in the comics like a year and a half ago. Like, it's all new stuff, and you have a character that's been around for nearly 80 years that has so many, like, fascinating stories with this character, and you're introducing stupid concepts like orichalcum, which is a potentially real-world metal and has been used as a metal in every other medium, and now it's a green poofy energy source that, like, gives him superpowers, and it's like, no! I don't need that. Like, well, why are we're introducing concepts from the worst Black Manta stories, like Underworld Unleashed and like the miniseries, but except they take all of the nuanced stuff about race from the miniseries and they throw it out the window in favor of green poofy magic. Go ahead.
No, I think all that is fascinating. You had told me all that before, and it's so frustrating to think of the what could have beens with what the story is. But again, this is the other problem. Like, even if they mostly stuck with the blueprint of what we saw, there's so many simple fixes they could have implemented to at least have improved what we got.
Yeah.
And we haven't even gotten to every other issue yet. Like,
and I don't think we can.
I was going to say, like, just real quick, and we both agree on this, some of the worst CGI.
Worst CGI I've ever seen. Like, it's very clear that they had their CGI budget stole after the merger. Like, they were not allowed to finish the CGI. They took that budget and they were like, we're pocketing this.
Yeah, that, and then some of the most awkward, like, beat drops.
Yeah, so music cues, unnecessary needle drops, really weird. Like, the score is good at times and then it's really bad at others.
Yes, and, like...
Tonally inconsistent is another thing I would describe this movie as, which we talked about a little bit.
There's so many, again... The fact that it's all these things together in an amalgamation for a movie that had potential. Because, again, I didn't think the first one was a masterpiece, but for what it was going for, it worked so well.
You just had to give us a stupid movie.
And here's, like, what is the sad thing is, there's so many stupid moments, mostly unintentional, if not all, that I wouldn't say this is even always boring. There are some parts that are, and it does not move at the best pace at times, and some things are just outright confusing. But some of the stupidity, I will say, gave us both some really good laughs.
Guys, I will say, one plus of this movie is, for the most part, it is a freaking stupid movie.
It's a meme movie.
So, as you've known, if you watch the channel, I love meme movies. I'm a meme lord. So, like, there's a lot of meme content in this movie. Like, this movie has a lot of... It might be my favorite for meme movie of the year.
Yeah.
I don't know yet, but it didn't quite push that boundary enough. It's not so stupid that it's good territory, because a lot of it is just bad.
I was going to say, you might have to make a list of the best meme movies
I
of
will.
the year.
You can find that on the channel after this.
But, yeah, overall, I would say I didn't have the highest expectations, but this was still somehow lower than that.
Yeah. It's just like, I just wanted to have fun, and at times, I felt like I barely could even do that.
And when we did, it probably was not for their intended reasons.
Yeah, so Nikki, let's do this. Out of 5 Tridents, what do you rate Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom?
Well, I can say confidently this is still better than Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
Yeah.
And maybe even a little more memorable than Quantumania.
Yeah, it definitely has, for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
But it's definitely more memorable than Quantumania.
So all those elements combined, I'm going to have to give it 2 out of 5 Tridents.
Interesting. For me, guess what, baby? I love stupidity. I'm a troll. I'm a meme lord. I'm giving this a 2.5 out of 5 stars, simply because it's so stupid at times that I just want to. I want to take scenes from this movie and I just want to rewatch them and wonder to myself how this got made, how this got approved and put to print. And there's some bad movie magic about that I'm really excited to check out. So yeah, 2.5 stars out of 5. If you're gonna, like, watch it, but wait until it comes out on, like, Max.
Yeah, it's not worth if you have to pay money for this.
Unfortunately, I wouldn't recommend paying for it. But hey, listen, if you want a film to take your family to during Christmas and you want to shake your head a lot, watch this movie. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a huge thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all of our latest content. If you want to check out our other reviews, click the link on the page. And until next time, guys, stay versed.